We'll be bold with When Will I See You Smile Again. It's an oldie but goodie from the classic, from the early 90s. But we're back. Like I said, before we went to break, man, I threw out there I was going to ask you this question, man, and it's one that, resonates amongst the groups of men that I speak with, and just been something that's been on my mind for a while. And like I said, it's starting to sweep the nation, and it is this shared equal parenting amongst fathers and mothers of children. Because a lot of times, when a mother and father, does not work out, I mean, yes, one's going to go one way and the other's going to go the other way.
Sure.
But the way that the laws or the unwritten rules have been laid out is that it seems as if it always favors, a mother over a father. And there's a lot of times, even when there's nothing wrong with the father.
Sure.
And here in a Bible Belt state such as Oklahoma, it kind of astonishes me that there's such a disparity in the way that this is interpreted.
Sure.
How do you feel about that? And would you support some kind of legislation that comes across your desk? Let's say once you do get elected, and you're over in the House, District 90. Would you support something like that? So
I think two things real quick for me. I think you're absolutely right in terms that when we talk about parenting, there should be equal rights, for both parties. But I think what we lose in terms of law, which I believe what you're alluding to, is that that doesn't always go both ways.
Yeah.
And I would also say that sometimes statistically, not in this case, but statistically when we talk about equal rights for parents and we compare men and women, it's usually leaned towards us. But you're right, in this case, it's not leaned towards us in terms of childcare and parenting. So I do think that as long as both parents are fit to raise a child, if there are no issues and that child is safe, I think that is the most important piece. So I think that at the state level, in the judicial system that exists in Oklahoma, there has to be that narrative and that guidance to look out for the child. Mm-hmm. And so I think before we can talk about things that come to the desk to sign it, because I would absolutely want to make sure that parents have the equal right and responsibility to take care of a child and make sure they're raised to be the best that they can be. I think the problem that exists in Oklahoma is that we tend to forget about the concern of the child, and we concern ourselves with the laws of the land by being in a Bible Belt, just like the bill that came through that discriminates against parents that want to adopt. If it's a same-sex couple, if it's a couple that has a different religion, once again, our state chose to not consider the child being in a loving home, no matter who their parents are. We're just considering the people on the outside. So there's this narrative that exists on both spectrums, man. We're talking about adoption, we're talking about raising a kid. We have to break that first. It's systemic, almost like racism is, man. But here specifically in Oklahoma, we have to start looking at the concern of the child. And I think that will help us get to the point that you're talking about, that then we can start making sure that these judges are being fair in their courtrooms and that lawyers are understanding the new processes that the state is fighting for. And should the state legislature need to step in, then absolutely we can do that. But I think first, what we talked about earlier, there has to be that culture change to make sure that we even have the laid out steps to get to where we want to be.
Yeah, and that's what, like I say, when I begin to look into the different candidates, these are some of the things that I start looking at. Like I say, if we as people are gonna get better, some of the things that we used to do back in the old days, may work. Back in the old days, there was, a mother and a father in the home. It was more so family orientated. These days, divorce is what's ruling the nation, or everybody wants to be by themselves and do their own thing, and we've gotten away from what we were actually founded on.
Sure.
And that's why I say with parenting, it means a lot to me, because once again, I was raised and I had a father, and I would think that I would want my kids to have their father.
Sure.
I would think, once again, if there's nothing wrong with the father themselves, I mean, why not? Why not? I understand that, morally people always say, well, the woman, she carried the child 9 months. Well, why do I have to pay for 18 years? 18 years versus 9 months, I'll trade you. If it's possible,
I don't know that. Are you sure you want to go through childbirth?
I
haven't experienced.
Do you want to deal with DHS as much as I've dealt with them in the last almost 10 years on one, and about 2 on my other one?
Yeah, I know. I get the metaphor that you're making, man, and I see your point. That's why I said I think we just have to step back, man, and just make sure that, as you're describing, that we're looking out for the best interest of the child.
Yeah.
If you, whether that's, not even, hopefully it doesn't even involve going to court. Like, if you're just able to sit down with somebody that can be a mediator for the father and the mother and say that, hey, you guys are two great parents. You're perfectly skilled to both raise the child. Here is the best schedule that we can figure out for you, or whatever the parents can agree on, just to make sure that child has the best life.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think we get lost in terms of just eliminating the child for the process, and then we focus on the parents. So we say that's an unfit father, and just as well we say that's an unfit mother. If those things exist, of course that puts us into a different place, but I absolutely agree with you, man. Like, the child should just be able to have the best life they can with their parents. If their parents are not married and they're separated, then okay, let's work through that.
Yeah.
And I think you're absolutely right, because they need both sides. They need to have that impact, especially if you have someone like yourself that's willing to invest that time into their child. They deserve to have it. So I would hope that cooler heads can prevail as we go forward as a state, to make sure that can happen.
Yeah, like I said, I just want to throw that out there to you, man, because it's something that I've noticed, different news outlets all across the nation, that is starting to get revved up, and I see it, and I'm like, yes, it should be equal. If everyone says that everybody should have equal rights, this is a place where equal rights should be given also. Absolutely. It should not just be a given, and I say this all the time, when a woman has a child at a hospital, I mean, what kind of credentials does she have in order to take the child home? But a male, in a lot of instances, have to prove that they have this. They have to prove that they have this in order to walk out of the hospital. A woman can say, hey, this is my baby, I'm walking out. Mm-hmm. Once again, that's why I say equal. Equal is what we're aiming for. Then we should be equal in everything, and especially in kids.
And let me say this. A mother is no more important than a father, and vice versa. A child needs both. Absolutely. For coming from a DHS background, I've never met a child that didn't want to know and or have a relationship with their father, regardless of how mom and dad's relationship ended up. Children still want to know their fathers. So just ladies, if you're listening out there, do your part. If you have a man that is trying to be in your child's life, please let him, because we have so many that really just don't care.
Yeah. And that's what, like I said, it's important to me to push that issue. And I got another one. It just came and popped up in my head. Because once again, when we always talk about equal, I recently had a friend of mine that went through a situation where he was forced to, defend himself against a woman, and in the end, he went too far. And let's say that, and I'll be honest about it. He went too far with the situation, and and I spoke with them, a few weeks ago, and I was just like, man, I understand your point. What do you think about? And I was talking to him. I was like, man, do we need to come up with the keep your hands to yourself law? Because once again, we were raised from little kids to keep your hands to yourself, and now as an adult, it just seems as if it's become acceptable for one side to do it, and when someone defends themselves, it's such a bad thing. Even though that's what we teach our kids at a young age. Also, you don't let nobody put your hands on you. So what do you? Because like I say, there's a lot of things that law-wise, we should have been take steps to say, hey, you know what, this isn't right. We've gotten this far down the road. Sure. And I was speaking to one of my buddies. He's a security guard. He used to be a cop, and I was just like, how do you all interpret that? And he just say, man, look, this is what people feel as if morally right. Yeah. And we'll let the judge decide. Sure.
Yeah, I think when we talk about things in terms of domestic disputes or or even abuse, we have to remember that statistically, I'll get to the scenario that you're describing. I was just going to say we have to remember that statistically it's usually the man that is abusing the woman. Mm-hmm. However, when you're talking about if a woman hits you, or if you're a man and someone puts their hands on you, of course, yeah, the law says that you can defend yourself, but I'm of the belief that you have to realize that you are a man. Yeah. And at this, somehow, some way, you are probably going to be larger than the person that's hitting you. You're going to have a larger force of things that are going to happen if you were to hit a woman. It doesn't mean the woman is weak, but come on, man. Like if you're going to punch a woman because she hit you, you're putting the apple next to an orange. And
Yeah.
that's not fair. So I think that in terms when we try to make things moral and ethic or even legal in those kind of scenarios, I think at the end of the day you just have to remember that you're a person first,
Yeah.
and you have to step back and think that is it worth it for me to do this? Probably not.
Probably not.
And the impact that I'm gonna have from her slapping me or whatever the case is, it doesn't make it right. But you have to think before you make that decision, because I don't think you'll ever end up in a good space if you chose to do that as a man.
Yeah, I mean, and that's most definitely. But it goes back to what you said in the beginning. I'm a man. Did everybody forget that before I got hit? Did the woman, did everybody remember that other than this person that hit me?
Sure.
And that's why I say sometimes there's situations, like I said, I've known men to swing back. I've known women to go way too far also. So that's why I say it just becomes the point where it's like, okay, hold on, walking this fine line. Do we want equal rights, or do we want, superior rights in certain situations? And that's why I say sometimes we as people, we've gotten so far away from what we really say we want. Is that what we want?
Yeah. I would just summarize it, man, as common sense rights.
Yeah.
And the same thing that we discuss gun reform and taxation. There are common sense things that you can do, and there are ways that you can defend yourself if a woman chose to hit you without actually hitting her.
Yeah, that's why I say
And,
that's why I say when you go too far, that's one thing. But when you're saying, hey, okay, you gotta kind of get off of me.
That's why I said
you gotta kind of get off me. Yeah.
That's why I say you have to be careful how I'm not saying you did this, but you have to be careful how you.
Oh no, I didn't.
No. That's what I'm saying. I know you did. I know you did.
Yeah,
He's innocent. He's innocent.
Yeah.
You just if you want to leverage things in terms of the law, well then also understand that in terms of defense, it's possible for you to defend yourself without putting your hands on someone.
Okay.
And you can remove yourself as well. I know we say that to the women a lot, but hey, men, you know who you're dealing with. If she has been building up to putting her hands on you, don't keep putting yourself in that situation.
Absolutely.
Where you would have to defend yourself.
Absolutely.
Meet in a public place. I'm hoping she wouldn't jump on you, in front of everybody, because most people abuse behind closed doors.
It's like Drake said, the Cheesecake Factory, man. You can't put your hands on me there.
Yeah, it's like she just said, man. I mean, but you gotta watch them these days. Everybody yelling "World Star, World." I'm just like, come on, man. Y'all gotta wake up out here.
Sure.
But like I say, man, it's been a good hour. I mean, I definitely appreciate you coming in.
Sure. I appreciate you having
people
me,
a little bit
man.
about you. We had a few technical difficulties on the phone. We'll work it out. It's raining here locally in OKC. But other than that, I mean, it's been a good show. What you got, Ms. Turner?
Not too much. I was wanting to ask Mr. Compton if someone wants to help your campaign in any type of way, how would
Sure.
they go about doing that?
Absolutely. So my website is Lavelle, my first name, it's Lavelle, Compton, COMPTON.com. You can actually look at everything from the platforms that I have that I support. If you're interested in making a donation or if you're interested in volunteering, all of those forms and processes are set up there. And I always tell people money is good, it's helpful, but this is a grassroots campaign, so if you can come out and help us knock doors, stuff envelopes, deliver signs, we'll be happy to have you and be glad to meet you as well.
Good
Okay.
deal.
All right, and once again, this show has been sponsored by Rich Life Investing. Richard Dennis and Rich Life Investing can help you make money in your sleep. They can also get you set up with life insurance just in case you don't wake up. And Lord knows you won't need it when you don't wake up. For a full list of products and services, contact Richard Dennis at RichLifeInvesting.com. Again, that's RichLifeInvesting.com. Another show up, another show down. What you got going for this evening, Ms. Turner?
I'm going to the gym.
Oh,
That is. I have one goal today: go to the gym and work out.
must be nice. That's all you gotta do on a Saturday. Other than that, man, you know me. I gotta get back to the job. And just keep it going. Other than that, once again, I want to thank Mr. Compton for coming out. Any last words?
No, thank you both. I really appreciate it. Keep doing this, both of you. Conversation is helpful, and this is how you get people to the polls. This is how you get, even outside of election season, this is how you get people involved, man. So kudos to both of you, and I appreciate you for having me.
Okay, and once again, best of luck.
Thank you.
Running for the State House, District 90.
Thank you, man.
Once again, that's it, man. The show's over. Right now, I got Doing Just Fine by Boys to Men. You've been listening to the All the Above show, 890 AM. Tony.